r/ProRevenge, sister stole my pregnancy reveal, so I exposed her lies. Hashtag the announcement that never was. I'd been staring at the positive pregnancy test for exactly 17 minutes when my hands started shaking. 3 years. 3 years of temperature tracking, ovulation strips, failed cycles, and doctor's appointments that left me hollow and desperate. 3 years of watching friends announce pregnancies on Facebook while I smiled through gritted teeth. 3 years of my husband holding me while I cried in the bathroom after yet another negative test, whispering that it would happen, that we just had to be patient. And then it did. The 2 pink lines were darker than I'd ever seen them. I'd taken the test at 5 a.m., unable to sleep, unable to wait until a reasonable hour, despite my doctor telling me that any time of day would work. I just needed to know. And now I knew. I was pregnant. I called my husband into the bathroom, watched him read the test, and saw his face crumple in a way I'd never seen before. We both cried. Not the sad kind of crying, the kind where your whole body shakes because you can't believe the thing you've wanted more than anything is finally, actually real. We need to tell them, he said, pulling me close. We need to tell everyone. But I wanted it to be special. Not a phone call. Not a casual text in the family group chat. After 3 years of silence, after all those times I'd had to smile and nod while my sister casually mentioned her problems finding the right guy, I wanted an announcement that mattered. I wanted a moment that was unmistakably, undeniably mine. That's when I thought of my parents' anniversary party. They were turning 40 years of marriage in 4 weeks. My mom had been planning this thing since January, a garden party at the country club, catering, the works. Our entire extended family would be there. Grandparents, cousins, aunts, uncles. Everyone. I could announce it there. Not as an afterthought, not squeezed into someone else's celebration, but as part of the evening's joy. I imagined how beautiful it would be, my father's face when I told him he was going to be a grandfather. My mother's hand flying to her mouth in shock. The way the whole family would erupt. It's perfect, my husband agreed. It's their day, but you're adding to the celebration. You're not stealing anything. Those last 5 words would echo in my mind for months. I called my OB and scheduled the standard first trimester ultrasound for the week before the party. I wanted to have a photo to share, something tangible to make the announcement real. Everything was coming together. I was going to get my moment. I told exactly no one. Not my best friend, not my mom, not even my work friend who I usually told everything to. This secret felt too precious, too fragile. I'd held disappointment for 3 years. I knew how to keep good news contained. My sister, Jessica, called me on a Thursday. This was unusual. Jessica and I weren't close. We were cordial in that obligatory sibling way. We saw each other at family events, exchanged pleasantries, said happy birthday on social media. But we weren't confidants. We didn't grab lunch or text about our weeks. Jessica was 32, perpetually single, worked in marketing, and had a tendency to insert herself into situations that didn't concern her. Hey, she said, her voice weird and high-pitched. What are you doing this weekend? Nothing much. Why? Just wondering. Want to grab coffee? I almost said no. I had no energy for fake sisterly bonding, and coffee with Jessica usually meant listening to her complain about her job or her dating life for an hour while I made sympathetic noises. But something made me say yes. The coffee shop was crowded on Saturday morning. I ordered my decaf, a small adjustment I'd been making since I got the positive test, and Jessica ordered her usual oat milk latte. We sat in the corner, and she immediately launched into a story about a guy from her work who she thought might ask her out. I wasn't listening, not really. I was thinking about my ultrasound appointment on Monday. I was imagining the technician putting that cold jelly on my stomach and seeing my baby for the first time. Earth to Sarah. Jessica waved her hand in front of my face. You're not even paying attention. Sorry, I'm tired. Work's been crazy. She studied me for a moment with an expression I couldn't quite read. Then she smiled, a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. You seem different, she said. You're glowing or something. My stomach dropped. I said nothing, taking a sip of my coffee to cover my reaction. Seriously, what's going on with you? She leaned forward. Are you pregnant? It was one of those moments where a second feels like an hour. Where you know your answer will ripple outward in ways you can't control. I could lie. I should lie. But I was caught off guard, and my face apparently betrayed me before my mouth could. Oh my God, you are. Jessica's eyes went wide, and then, I'll never forget this, they went cold. You're pregnant. I'm not, I started, but she held up her hand. Don't bother. I can tell. She sat back in her chair, and something shifted in her expression. Something calculated. Wow. 3 years of trying and boom, finally happens. I felt my skin crawl. How did you? Mom mentioned it once. A couple years ago. How you and Mark had been trying. She stirred her latte slowly, not looking at me. Well. Congratulations. The word felt like a threat. I made an excuse and left early, telling her I had an appointment, which wasn't a lie. I did have an appointment. But not until Monday. As I drove away, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had just been set in motion. Something I couldn't take back. I had no idea how right I was. Hashtag the ultrasound. Monday morning arrived with a kind of anxiety I hadn't expected. Not the normal nervousness about the ultrasound itself, that was pure anticipation, the kind that made me arrive 20 minutes early and fill out paperwork I'd already filled out online. No, the anxiety was about Jessica. She hadn't texted me since Saturday. She hadn't called. She hadn't posted anything cryptic on Instagram or done any of her usual attention-seeking things. The silence was somehow worse than if she'd confronted me directly. It felt like she was plotting something, and I had no idea what. Mark had squeezed my hand in the waiting room. Stop overthinking, he'd whispered. Today is about us. About our baby. He was right. I needed to let go of whatever weird vibe Jessica had created and focus on this moment. This was the day I'd been dreaming about for 3 years. The technician, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes, had me lie back and lifted my shirt. The cold jelly made me gasp. Mark laughed and held my hand tighter. And then she moved the wand across my stomach, and there it was. Our baby. A small, miraculous bean-shaped thing on the screen. I started crying immediately, and Mark leaned over to look at the screen, and then he was crying too, and the technician was smiling that professional but genuine smile of someone who'd done this 1,000 times and never got tired of it. Measuring right on schedule, she said softly. Do you want photos? Of course we did. She printed out several, and I held them like they were made of spun glass, terrified I'd accidentally smudge the images. This was it. This was the proof. This was the announcement I was going to make at my parents' party in just over 2 weeks. Everything was perfect. Everything was perfect until Tuesday morning, when my mother called me at work. Honey, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be honest with me. Her voice had that particular tone that meant she was in her concerned mother mode. Is everything okay with you and Mark? What? Yes, everything's fine. Why? It's just. Jessica called me last night. She said she was worried about you. She said you seemed really stressed out lately, and she wanted to know if there was something going on that she should know about. I felt my chest tighten. That's weird. Jessica doesn't usually care if I'm stressed. That's what I thought too. But she was very persistent. She kept asking if you'd been acting strange, if you'd said anything unusual to her. She mentioned you guys got coffee on Saturday. Mom, Jessica is fine. I'm fine. Everything is fine. I was gripping my desk so hard my knuckles had gone white. Why is she suddenly concerned about my mental health? I don't know, sweetheart. It just seemed odd. She also asked me, this is going to sound strange, but she asked if you'd mentioned anything about wanting children. Like, why would she ask that? The world tilted slightly. I steadied myself against my desk. I have no idea, I lied. Maybe she's just being weird. After I hung up, I sat in my cubicle for 10 minutes, trying to understand what was happening. Jessica had called my mother to ask about me. Jessica, who barely acknowledged my existence at family gatherings, had suddenly decided to play concerned sister. Jessica, who I'd accidentally told I was pregnant, was, what? Snooping? Building a case for something? I needed to talk to Mark. He came home from work that evening looking exhausted, and I immediately pulled him aside. I told him everything, the weird coffee date, Jessica's cold reaction, the question about me being pregnant, and now the call to my mother. She knows, I said flatly. She definitely knows. So what? Mark set down his briefcase. You were going to tell everyone in 2 weeks anyway. Maybe this is better. Maybe she'll keep it quiet. But I knew my sister. I knew that tone in her voice, that calculation in her eyes. Jessica didn't keep quiet about anything. She broadcast her life constantly, every restaurant she went to, every date she went on, however brief, every minor accomplishment or drama. She was, by nature and by compulsion, someone who needed to be the center of attention. And now she knew that I had the one thing she didn't. The one thing that would absolutely guarantee that all eyes would be on me, at least for a moment. The waiting felt like a bomb ticking down. I tried to distract myself with work, with planning, with anything. I ordered a cute outfit for the party announcement. I researched cute ways to tell my parents. I made a Pinterest board of pregnancy announcement ideas, something I'd been too superstitious to do before, but now felt safe. I was nesting before the nesting even began. Wednesday passed quietly. Thursday too. By Friday, I was starting to hope that maybe I'd misread the situation. Maybe Jessica had just been fishing, and now she'd moved on to whatever drama was happening in her own life. That hope died on Saturday morning. I was in the grocery store, picking up ingredients for dinner, when my phone buzzed. It was a message in the family group chat, the one with my parents, my brother, Jessica, and me. My brother rarely said anything, and my dad mostly just reacted with emoji, but my mom used it to share information and memes. The message was from Jessica. Hey everyone. I have some huge news to share, but I wanted to tell you here first before I make a big announcement. I'm pregnant. Smiling face with hard eyes party popper baby, I'm so shocked and excited. I literally just found out yesterday. Can't wait to tell you all more soon. This is the best thing that's ever happened to me. I stood in the middle of the produce section, holding a bunch of cilantro, reading those words over and over. She couldn't possibly be pregnant. I'd seen her 2 weeks ago. She would have mentioned something. But more than that, I knew, with absolute certainty, that Jessica was lying. And somehow, she'd announced her fake pregnancy before I could announce my real one. Within seconds, the messages started flooding in. Congratulations from aunts and uncles I barely saw. Excited emojis from cousins. My mother sending a string of hearts and I'm so happy for you, Jessica. My father's typical that's great news. My brother actually wrote out actual words, congrats sis. And then my mother sent a separate message to the main chat, this is wonderful news, Jessica. And Sarah, I'm so happy for you too. Now I understand what you were worried about, smiling face with smiling eyes red heart. She thought I was pregnant. Or rather, she thought I told Jessica I was pregnant, and Jessica had just stolen my announcement. I abandoned my cart and went to my car. Sitting in the parking lot with my hands shaking, I did the only thing I could think to do, I called Mark. She announced a fake pregnancy to the entire family, I said, my voice hollow. She did it first. She beat me to it. There was a long silence on the other end. Oh my god, Mark whispered. Yeah. We didn't say anything for a while after that. There wasn't much to say. The moment I carefully planned, the joy I'd been protecting, had been hijacked. And worse, Jessica had done it with a lie. I had no idea yet how much deeper the lie would go. #chunk3. The next 2 weeks were a masterclass in emotional torture. Jessica's pregnancy announcement didn't just sit quietly in the family chat. It metastasized. Within days, she created an entire narrative around it. She posted ultrasound photos on her Instagram, which I later discovered were stolen from random medical websites. I reverse image searched them out of desperate, obsessive spite. She started a private Facebook group called Baby on Board and invited extended family members. She posted daily updates about her symptoms, morning sickness so bad she could barely get out of bed, cravings for pickle juice and ice cream, mood swings that were absolutely wild. My aunt started calling her to offer advice and support. My grandmother sent her a care package with prenatal vitamins and maternity clothing catalogs. My cousin offered to throw her a baby shower. And everyone, literally everyone, seemed to have forgotten that I existed. The cruelest part was that no one asked me how I was doing. Not once. My mother, who I'd expected to be thrilled when I made my announcement at the party, had apparently decided that Jessica's fake pregnancy was the most exciting thing that had happened to the family in years. She'd even started a group chat with Jessica's friends to coordinate baby shower planning. Mark kept telling me to just go ahead and announce. "You're almost at the party," he'd say. "Just tell them. Tell them the truth." But I couldn't. Not yet. Because I could see exactly how this would go. I'd announce my real pregnancy, and Jessica would cry and say she was jealous, or she'd claim that she'd had a miscarriage, and everyone would rally around her. She'd make my announcement about her loss. She'd steal that moment too, just in a different way. So I decided to wait. I decided to watch. And I decided to gather evidence. It started innocently enough. I took screenshots of her Instagram posts, comparing the ultrasound photos to the ones I found on various medical blogs and fertility websites. I created a spreadsheet. I know, it was obsessive, but I was in a dark place, tracking the timeline of her pregnancy. If she'd gotten pregnant around the same time she claimed, the conception would have been mid-January. I noted every time she mentioned a symptom, every time she posted a photo. I cross-referenced dates with her Instagram stories, which showed her going to bars, drinking wine, engaging in activities that made no sense if she were actually pregnant. One night, at about 2 a.m., I was scrolling through her tagged photos and found a picture from 3 months ago at her friend's wedding. She was holding a cocktail, wearing a skin-tight dress, looking absolutely radiant in a way that pregnant women, even early pregnant women, rarely do without explanation. But what really caught my attention was the caption her friend had written, "My favorite girl. When are you getting married?" Face with tears of joy, 2 hearts. Jessica's response, "Honestly, marriage seems overrated right now. I'm just trying to figure out my life first, lol." No mention of anything happening in her body. No cryptic "my life is about to change" comments. Nothing. I saved that screenshot too. The night before the party, I sat in my home office while Mark slept, surrounded by my meticulously organized evidence. Printed ultrasound images side by side with their originals. A timeline printed out on graph paper like I was planning a war campaign. Screenshots organized by date. A list of every lie, every inconsistency, every red flag. I felt sick. Not righteous or vindicated, just sick. "What are you doing?" Mark's voice came from the doorway. He was squinting against the light, looking at the disaster I'd created across our desk. "Preparing," I said quietly. He came closer and looked at the spreadsheet, the photographs, the evidence wall I'd essentially constructed in our office. His jaw tightened. "Sarah, no." "No what?" "No to whatever this is." "This is." He gestured at the papers. "This is not okay. She's lying to the entire family. She's lying to Grandma. Grandma sent her a care package for a baby that doesn't exist, Mark. Our baby exists, and no one even knows about it yet." "I know about it," he said firmly. "Your parents will know tomorrow. And honestly, I don't think this," he pointed at the evidence wall, "is the right way to handle this." "So what?" "I just announced my real pregnancy, and she announces her miscarriage, and everyone feels sorry for her while I'm left standing there trying to celebrate? Or," he said carefully, "you announce your real pregnancy, and when she announces her miscarriage, you let the people who love you actually love you, and you don't take the bait. It's not bait if she's actively lying." "I know. But Sarah, listen to me." He sat on the edge of the desk. "If you go to that party tomorrow with the intention of exposing her, you're going to hurt people. Your parents are going to be devastated. The family is going to splinter. And yes, Jessica will be humiliated, but you're going to spend the rest of your life as a woman who publicly destroyed her sister." I looked away from him. "I'm not saying what she did is okay. It's cruel and it's wrong and it's deeply messed up. But there's a difference between defending yourself and taking revenge. And this," he gestured at the papers again, "this is revenge." After he went back to bed, I sat alone with my evidence. He was right, of course. He was always right, which was probably the most annoying thing about him. But here's the thing, knowing he was right didn't make the anger go away. It didn't make me feel less violated, less robbed, less betrayed. It just meant I was angry and trying to be the bigger person, which might actually be worse. I didn't pack away the evidence. Instead, I organized it more carefully. I put it in a folder in a drawer. I told myself it was just in case. Just in case Jessica did something else. Just in case I needed it. The party was tomorrow. My real announcement was tomorrow. And somewhere in the back of my mind, a darker version of myself was already wondering what Jessica would say, what she would do, and exactly how much I would be able to stand before I decided that revenge wasn't such a terrible thing after all. #Chunk4. The party was held at an upscale Italian restaurant downtown, the kind of place our parents had been going to for anniversaries for the past 15 years. I arrived early with Mark, my hand resting on my still flat stomach like I was trying to communicate with the life inside me. "Stay strong," I thought irrationally. "We're about to tell them about you." The restaurant had been decorated tastefully, white and gold streamers, photos of our parents through the decades displayed on easels. I'd helped arrange some of those photos weeks ago, back when my biggest concern was finding the perfect moment for my announcement. It felt like a lifetime ago. My mother spotted me as I was helping Mark with his jacket. Her face lit up in a way that made my chest tighten. She thought I was just here as a guest. She had no idea what I was about to tell her. "Sarah, you look beautiful." She pulled me into a hug, and I let myself sink into it for a moment. After the last 2 weeks of feeling invisible, her attention felt like oxygen. "Thanks, Mom. You look incredible." And she did. She was wearing a deep blue dress, her hair styled perfectly, her face glowing with a kind of joy that only comes from celebrating a marriage that's actually survived 30 years. "Your father's already mingling with his cousins. Come say hello when you get a chance." She squeezed my hand and turned to kiss Mark hello before disappearing into the crowd. The restaurant filled up gradually. Aunts and uncles arrived, cousins with their spouses and kids, grandparents positioned carefully at a table with the best view. I moved through the space like a ghost, accepting congratulations on the party, complimenting people's outfits, all while feeling completely detached from every interaction. Then Jessica arrived. She was wearing a flowing emerald dress that I immediately recognized as a maternity style, something I'd noted in my obsessive research over the past 2 weeks. The dress was designed to emphasize a belly, to draw attention to the exact place where a baby would be growing. Except there was no baby. There was just Jessica, wearing a lie like a second skin. She'd also, I noticed, applied makeup in a way that emphasized shadows under her eyes. She pulled her hair back in a deliberately tired-looking ponytail. She was performing pregnancy the way an actress might prepare for a role. The nausea I'd been fighting for weeks returned full force. Jessica saw me across the room and waved, one hand traveling to her stomach in an unconscious gesture that might have looked maternal if it hadn't been so clearly practiced. She made her way toward me, and several family members followed in her wake like she was a celebrity. Sarah. I'm so glad you're here. She pulled me into a hug, and I felt my body go rigid. I've been meaning to talk to you. I wanted to make sure you didn't feel weird about, everything happening at the same time in the family. Everything happening at the same time. As if my 3 years of infertility, my miscarriages, my endless cycles of hope and devastating disappointment, were equivalent to her deciding to fabricate a pregnancy for attention. I'm fine, I said, pulling away. Congratulations on your pregnancy. The word felt like ash in my mouth. Thanks. She touched her stomach again. I've been having the worst nausea, honestly. I could barely eat breakfast this morning. I'm thinking about asking the restaurant if they have some ginger ale. The doctor said it might help. That sounds good, I said flatly. Aunt Carol, my mother's sister, appeared at Jessica's elbow immediately. Oh honey, of course they have ginger ale. Let me find your mother and we'll get you taken care of. You shouldn't be on your feet too much, not in your condition. I watched as Jessica was led away, coddled and cared for by an aunt who hadn't asked me how I was doing in months. You okay? Mark appeared at my side, 2 glasses of sparkling cider in his hands. He'd been thoughtfully avoiding alcohol all night to keep me company, which somehow made the entire situation worse. No, I said quietly. I'm really not. The dinner portion of the party began around 7 o'clock. I sat between Mark and my younger cousin David, picking at my pasta while my parents gave toasts at the front of the room. My father talked about falling in love with my mother at a college party. My mother talked about the adventure of marriage, about partnership and commitment and choosing each other over and over again through the years. It was beautiful, and it made me want to cry. After the toasts, the DJ started playing music from the 80s and 90s. There would be dancing soon, and sometime during the evening, I'd planned this meticulously weeks ago, I would ask for the microphone and make my announcement. I'd planned to do it after my parents had opened their gifts, during that natural lull in the evening when people were refueling at the bar and mingling. That was the plan. That was how this was supposed to go. But then something shifted. I excused myself to use the restroom around 8 o'clock, and as I was washing my hands, I overheard a conversation in the hallway outside the bathroom. It was Jessica and her friend Brittany, who'd come as her plus one. I'm dying, Jessica was saying, her voice exaggerated with exhaustion. The fatigue is insane. I feel like I could sleep for a week. Have you told your family yet? Brittany asked. Not the full story, Jessica said. I've been dropping hints, letting them figure it out. But I think my mom is starting to wonder if I might be struggling with something. Like, emotionally. I might say something at dinner about being worried about whether I'm ready for this, Really play up the vulnerability angle. My hand froze on the paper towel dispenser. That's good strategy, Brittany said. People love supporting someone who's honest about their fears. I stood in that bathroom, staring at my reflection in the mirror, and realized that Jessica wasn't just lying anymore. She was actively strategizing. She was planning how to deepen the lie, how to make it more believable, how to extract more sympathy and support from our family. The anger I'd been managing for 2 weeks crystallized into something harder and colder. When I returned to the table, Mark took one look at my face and went pale. What happened? He whispered. I didn't answer. Instead, I looked across the restaurant to where Jessica was sitting, laughing with my grandmother, touching her false stomach, performing her false pregnancy with the kind of commitment usually reserved for actual acting. And I thought, Mark was wrong. This wasn't about revenge. This was about justice. This was about defending myself and my real baby and the moment that had been stolen from me. The folder in my car suddenly felt very close. #Chunk5. The announcement never happened that night. I'd planned to take the microphone around 9:30, after my parents had opened their gifts and the evening had settled into that comfortable, slightly tipsy phase where people were relaxed and receptive. I'd memorized what I was going to say, something about how Mark and I had been on a journey, about how grateful we were, about how we couldn't wait to become parents. Simple. Joyful. Deserved. But as I sat at that table, watching Jessica accept compliments from relatives who'd never bothered to ask about my fertility struggles, I realized something crucial. If I announced my pregnancy now, it would look like I was responding to her. It would look like I was trying to one-up her, to reclaim the spotlight she'd stolen. The narrative would shift in people's minds, not Jessica stole Sarah's moment, but oh, so Sarah was jealous and announced hers right after. I could already hear the whispers, the way family members would frame it as 2 sisters competing rather than one sister destroying another's joy. She'd already poisoned the well. I'm not doing it tonight, I whispered to Mark around 9 o'clock, as we slow danced to some 90s ballad I didn't recognize. He pulled back to look at me. What? No. You have to. You planned this for weeks. If I do it now, it's going to look like a response to her. I hated saying it out loud, hated that she'd even stolen my ability to announce my pregnancy in a straightforward way. People are going to think I'm trying to compete with her. That I'm the crazy sister making drama. You're not crazy, Mark said firmly. And you shouldn't have to strategize around her lies. I know. But that's the reality I'm dealing with. I rested my forehead against his shoulder, exhausted. I need to wait. I need to expose what she's doing first, or this pregnancy will always be tainted by association with her fake one. It will always be seen as part of this mess. Mark was quiet for a long moment. You're right, he finally said. I don't like it, but you're right. I spent the rest of the evening in a state of careful observation. I watched Jessica perform pregnancy with increasing sophistication. She complained about her lower back hurting. She mentioned that she'd been craving pickles and ice cream. She told my Aunt Susan that she was worried the stress of everything might affect the baby, and I watched my aunt's face soften with concern as she immediately offered to help with whatever Jessica needed. Around 10 o'clock, my mother appeared at our table, slightly flushed from dancing. Sarah, sweetie, I haven't gotten much time to talk to you tonight. How are you feeling? You seem a little down. The irony was almost painful. My mother was asking if I was okay while Jessica was being treated like the most precious person in the room. I'm fine, Mom, I said, forcing a smile. Just a little tired. Are you sure? You know you can always talk to me about anything, right? She squeezed my shoulder, and I had to look away because I felt dangerously close to crying. I know. I'm just going to head home soon. It's been a long week. She accepted this, kissing the top of my head before disappearing back into the crowd. I hated lying to her, hated that I couldn't tell her what was happening. But I couldn't risk Jessica hearing that I knew, not yet. Not until I had everything in place. By the time we left at 11, I'd made my decision. I was going to wait until Jessica's baby shower, a date she'd already started planning with obnoxious enthusiasm, just 6 weeks away. She'd booked a venue, created a registry, and was already soliciting advice from our female relatives about themes and decorations. It would be the perfect moment. She'd be surrounded by family and friends, gifts piled high with things purchased in good faith, everyone celebrating a pregnancy that didn't exist. And that's when I would dismantle it all. The next morning, I woke up feeling both empowered and nauseated. The empowerment was from finally having a concrete plan. The nausea was from my pregnancy, but also from the sheer weight of what I was about to do. Mark made me breakfast while I worked at the kitchen table, organizing my evidence. I had screenshots of her ultrasound photos, cross-referenced with the original sources I'd found online. I had timeline inconsistencies I'd documented obsessively. She'd claimed to be 12 weeks along, but then she mentioned a due date that would only make sense if she were 14 weeks. She talked about having morning sickness for the past month, but she'd posted photos on Instagram from 4 weeks ago where she was actively drinking wine, with no apparent nausea whatsoever. I had the conversation I'd overheard, documented in my own notes. I was going to find Brittany and figure out if she knew the truth. I was going to call the OBGYN office where Jessica had supposedly been receiving care, a clinic our Aunt Carol worked at as a receptionist, to verify whether Jessica had any appointments scheduled. Are you sure you want to do this? Mark asked, setting a plate of scrambled eggs in front of me. Once you open this door, there's no closing it again. She opened the door, I said quietly. She decided to lie to our entire family. She decided to steal my moment. She decided that her need for attention was more important than my right to joy. I know. I'm just saying, this is going to blow up. It's going to hurt people. Jessica's going to face real consequences. Good. The word came out harder than I intended. She deserves to face consequences. She's been lying for weeks. Our whole family is complicit in her deception because they don't know the truth. Mark sat down across from me, and I could see the worry in his expression. He was concerned about the fallout, about the family drama that was going to explode like shrapnel once I revealed what I'd found. Part of me understood his hesitation. But another part of me, the part that had been invisible for the last 2 weeks, the part that had watched Jessica receive sympathy and support for a pregnancy that was pure fiction, was done being reasonable. When are you going to tell your parents? He asked. Not until right before the shower. If I tell them earlier, Jessica might find out and try to control the narrative. She'll spin some story about how I'm the jealous one, how I'm trying to sabotage her. I took a bite of eggs, barely tasting them. I need her to have built this up completely first. I need everyone to be so invested in her lie that when the truth comes out, they have no choice but to see it. And your relationship with Jessica? I didn't answer because I didn't have an answer. Somewhere in the past 2 weeks, I'd stopped thinking of Jessica as my sister in any meaningful sense. She'd become the obstacle, the antagonist, the person I was building a case against. By the time I finished my breakfast, I'd already made a list of my next steps. I was going to spend the next 6 weeks assembling an airtight case, a truth so undeniable that Jessica couldn't wiggle out of it no matter how she tried. I was going to expose her. #Chunk6. The next 3 weeks were a masterclass in obsession disguised as preparation. I told myself I was being thorough. The truth was, I was becoming consumed by it. I had a spreadsheet now, an actual Excel file with tabs for timeline inconsistencies, photo analysis, and witness statements. Mark would find me at 2 in the morning, still in my pajamas, cross-referencing Instagram posts with weather reports to prove that Jessica couldn't have been where she claimed to be on certain dates. He'd close the laptop gently and guide me back to bed, but I'd lie awake anyway, my mind running through the evidence like a prosecutor preparing for trial. The pregnancy itself felt secondary to the investigation. My morning sickness came and went. I had an ultrasound at 12 weeks where they confirmed everything was healthy, and I felt this small, guilty flutter of joy that I immediately suppressed. I didn't want to celebrate until Jessica was exposed. It felt like I had to choose between these 2 things, my happiness or my justice. I chose justice. I called the OBGYN clinic where Jessica claimed to be receiving care. I'd rehearsed the call a dozen times, but when the receptionist picked up, I still managed to sound nervous. Hi, I said, I'm trying to verify an appointment for my sister, Jessica Morrison. She mentioned she had an ultrasound scheduled? I'd added just enough uncertainty to my voice, made it sound like I was checking on a detail rather than investigating. There was a pause. I'm not able to discuss patient information without the patient's permission. My heart sank, but I pressed on. Oh, I understand. I'm just helping coordinate family stuff, and I wanted to make sure I had the date right. Could you at least tell me if she has an appointment in the system? I'm sorry, the receptionist said, not unkindly. I can't confirm or deny whether someone is a patient here. That's HIPAA protected. I hung up feeling both frustrated and oddly vindicated. The fact that they wouldn't confirm her status wasn't proof she wasn't a patient, but it also meant she couldn't have just casually mentioned appointments around family members if she was trying to keep her pregnancy private. Which meant she was either lying about where she was receiving care, or she was lying about being pregnant. Probably both. Then Brittany came to me on a Thursday afternoon while I was reorganizing my evidence at the kitchen table, again. She texted, "Can we grab coffee? Need to talk to you about Jessica stuff." My stomach twisted. Had Jessica confessed to her? Was Brittany going to try to convince me to keep quiet? Or worse, had Jessica found out that I was digging and sent Brittany to do damage control? The coffee shop was crowded enough to feel public but quiet enough to talk. Brittany ordered a latte and sat across from me, looking uncomfortable. "I need to tell you something," she said without preamble, "and you have to promise not to tell Jessica I told you." "Okay," I said carefully. "I don't think Jessica is actually pregnant." I went completely still. This was not what I'd expected. Brittany was Jessica's closest friend, they'd been inseparable since high school. If Brittany didn't believe her, what did that mean? "What makes you say that?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. "Because I asked her directly, and she wouldn't show me ultrasound photos," Brittany said, stirring her latte aggressively. She kept deflecting, saying they were on her phone and it was acting up, or she'd left them at the doctor's office. But here's the thing, Jessica and I share literally everything. We send each other stupid TikToks and memes. We FaceTime all the time. And suddenly with this pregnancy, she's being secretive? That doesn't make sense. Maybe she's worried about miscarriage, I offered, even though I was internally screaming with validation. Maybe, Brittany said, but she didn't sound convinced. But then she told me she was planning to announce at your parents' anniversary party, and I asked her why she'd tell your whole family before telling her best friend alone, and she couldn't really explain that either. She just got defensive. Brittany looked at me directly. "I think she saw that you were announcing your pregnancy and made up her own." The relief I felt was enormous, and then immediately complicated by guilt. Because Brittany cared about Jessica, and I was about to use her doubt against my sister. "Have you said anything to anyone?" I asked. "No, because I felt weird about it. Like, what if I'm wrong? What if I'm being a bad friend by doubting her?" But then I kept noticing other stuff. Last week she complained about morning sickness all day, but then we went to dinner and she ordered sushi and ate it fine. No hesitation, no running to the bathroom. Just, normal. I wanted to tell her everything. I wanted to show her my spreadsheet, my screenshots, my timeline of lies. But I couldn't, not yet. If I did, she might confront Jessica, and Jessica would know I was investigating. "What are you going to do?" Brittany asked. "Nothing," I said. "For now. But I'm keeping track of things." Brittany nodded slowly, processing this. "If she's lying, that's really messed up, Sarah. That's beyond messed up. Especially knowing what you went through with the fertility stuff." "I know," I said quietly. After Brittany left, I sat in a coffee shop for another hour, updating my spreadsheet with her observations. I had a witness now, someone who'd observed Jessica's behavior independently and reached similar conclusions. It wasn't proof, but it was corroboration. That evening, I made a decision that felt both necessary and reckless. I created a new email address, something generic and untraceable, and sent Jessica a message through Facebook Messenger pretending to be from a woman named Rebecca Chan, claiming to be someone she'd matched with on a mommy forum who had pregnancy advice to share. It was a test. If Jessica responded enthusiastically, offering details about her pregnancy, it would be further evidence that she was comfortable fabricating details to strangers. If she ignored it, that was something too. She responded within 2 hours, eager and chatty, immediately launching into a detailed story about her pregnancy symptoms that contradicted other things she'd told family members. I read the messages over and over, feeling sick and vindicated in equal measure. For weeks until the baby shower. For weeks until everything came crashing down. #Chunk7. The week before the baby shower, my mom called me at work. "I need your help with something," she said, her voice tight in a way that made me immediately anxious. "Jessica's registry. The one she set up. I want to make sure we're not duplicating gifts, and I can't find it anywhere. I've checked all the usual websites, and nothing. Do you know where it is?" My mouth went dry. "Have you asked Jessica about it?" I did, and she gave me this vague answer about wanting to keep things low-key because she's still processing everything. But honey, that doesn't make sense. Everyone has a registry. You had one. There was a pause. "How are you doing, by the way? I feel like I haven't really talked to you since I decided to burn my sister to the ground." "I'm fine," I lied. "Just tired." "Well, if you hear anything about the registry, let me know. And Sarah? I'm proud of you. I hope you know that. About the pregnancy, I mean. After everything you and Mark went through, you deserve this happiness." The words landed like a punch. I mumbled something non-committal and got off the phone as quickly as I could. That evening, I did something I'd been avoiding. I looked up what happened to people after family exposures like this. I fell down a Reddit rabbit hole, reading stories about families torn apart by revelations, about people who'd exposed lies and watched their relationships detonate. Some people had regretted it. Some people hadn't. Most of the threads ended with people saying things like, "I was right, but the cost was too high, and I don't talk to them anymore, and I'm okay with that, but my mom cried for a year." I texted Mark, "Can we talk?" He was home within an hour, and I showed him everything. Not in the measured way I'd been organizing it, but all at once, the spreadsheet, the screenshots, the voice memo I'd made of my conversation with Brittany, the fake Facebook profile still open on my laptop with Jessica's messages glowing accusatory. He read through it all silently while I sat next to him on the couch, my leg bouncing with anxiety. When he finally spoke, his voice was carefully neutral. "This is thorough." "It's worse than thorough," I said. "It's obsessive." I know that, Mark. But it's all true. Every single bit of it is true." "I'm not saying it isn't," he said slowly. "But I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly. What happens the day after the baby shower? After you expose her? Then everyone knows the truth." "Okay. And then what? Does that fix what happened to you? Does that undo the hurt of her stealing your moment?" I opened my mouth to answer, then closed it. "Because," Mark continued gently, "the thing I'm noticing is that you haven't mentioned your actual pregnancy in 2 weeks. You got past 12 weeks. Do you know how big that is?" How much that matters? And instead of celebrating that, instead of letting yourself feel happy, you're building a case file. She deserves to be exposed, I said, but my voice wavered. Maybe she does, Mark said. But you don't deserve to sacrifice your own pregnancy for it. And that's what you're doing, whether you realize it or not. I wanted to argue with him. I wanted to defend my meticulous preparation, my spreadsheet, my righteous anger. But something in me crumbled instead. I started crying, not delicate tears, but the kind of ugly crying that comes from months of tension finally breaking. Mark held me while I fell apart, and I felt the weight of what I'd been carrying finally begin to shift. I don't know how to just let this go, I said into his shoulder. I'm not saying let it go, Mark said. I'm saying maybe there's a middle ground between keeping quiet and orchestrating a public takedown. But the thing was, there wasn't a middle ground. Not anymore. Jessica's baby shower was in 6 days. I'd been invited to attend as a family member, not a participant. She hadn't asked me to be a bridesmaid or help with planning, which had been its own small cruelty. I knew that my parents had already bought gifts. I knew that Aunt Carol had been bragging about the expensive stroller she'd purchased. I knew that extended family was flying in, that this was going to be a major event, and that Jessica had planned it as a coronation for her fictional motherhood. On Friday, I received a text from an unknown number. *Hi Sarah, it's Brittany. I need to see you again. Something happened. *. We met at the same coffee shop, and Brittany looked genuinely shaken. Jessica's pregnant, she said without preamble. I blinked. What? I mean, no, she's not. But she told me she is now. And she told me that she's been worried about losing the baby, and she had spotting, and she's been so stressed about her pregnancy that she asked me not to tell anyone yet because she wants to make sure it's viable before the shower. Which, by the way, she's now saying might have to be rescheduled because she might need to be on bed rest. I felt the breath leave my body. She was escalating. But here's the weird part, Brittany continued. She said all this to me in private, with this intensity, like she was confiding in me. And it felt real, Sarah. For a second, it felt real. And I felt terrible for doubting her. She's gaslighting you, I said flatly. I know. I know that's what this is. But the thing is, it's working on me a little bit. And I'm Jessica's best friend. If it's working on me, it's definitely going to work on everyone else at the shower. This was the complication I'd been dreading. Jessica wasn't just maintaining her lie, she was refining it, adding new dramatic details, adjusting her story based on pushback. She was a moving target. I have to ask you something, Brittany said quietly. And you can't lie to me. Is your pregnancy real? Yes, I said immediately. Yes, it is absolutely real. And I was going to announce it at my parents' anniversary party, and Jessica overheard and announced hers first. Brittany's expression crumpled. Oh my god. Yeah. What are you going to do? I thought about Mark, about middle ground, about what would happen to my actual pregnancy and my actual joy if I spent the next week consumed by this. I don't know, I said, and realized I meant it. The plan I'd been so carefully constructing suddenly felt fragile, like maybe it had never been about justice at all. Maybe it had been about pain, and I'd just been looking for a place to put it. #Chunk 8. The night before the baby shower, I made a decision. I deleted the spreadsheet. Not the evidence, I kept the screenshots, the voice memos, the photos. But I deleted the meticulously organized document I created, the one that had consumed hours of my life, the one that had become more real to me than my own pregnancy. I watched it move to the trash folder and felt something inside me release, like I'd been holding my breath for 3 months and could finally exhale. Mark found me on the couch at 11 p.m., staring at nothing. You okay? He asked, sitting down beside me. I'm going to the shower tomorrow, I said. And I'm not going to say anything. He didn't look surprised. What changed? I realized that I'd been pregnant for 14 weeks, and I can barely remember what that feels like. I'm too busy thinking about Jessica. And she doesn't deserve to take that from me too. What I didn't say was that I'd spent the evening feeling the baby move, real, tiny flutters that might have been gas but felt like a whole universe settling into place. I put my hand on my stomach and felt the weight of 3 years of wanting, of needles and hormone shots and disappointment, finally crystallizing into something tangible. Mark had put his hand on top of mine, and for the first time in weeks, we'd talked about the baby. Not about Jessica. Just about ours. I'm proud of you, Mark said. Don't be yet, I told him. I'm still furious. That's okay, he said. You can be furious and still choose the high road. The baby shower was held at a country club, all white linens and pastel decorations. Jessica had gone with a sunshine baby theme, yellow and white and precious, everything carefully curated to look effortless and beautiful. She wore a flowing yellow dress that was clearly meant to show off a non-existent belly, and she kept one hand protectively on her stomach in a gesture I recognized from pregnancy blogs, the universal pose of expecting mothers. I watched her work the room, watched her accept gifts and hugs, watched her tell the same story about hearing the heartbeat to different relatives with only minor variations. She was good at it. Genuinely good. If I didn't know the truth, I might have believed her. My parents were there. Aunt Carol was there. Cousins and extended family and Jessica's work friends, all of them falling over themselves with congratulations and well wishes. No one questioned her. No one asked to see ultrasound photos. No one suggested a registry search. She had created a perfect fiction and people wanted so badly to believe in it that they simply did. Around 2 in the afternoon, my mom pulled me aside to the bathroom. Honey, can we talk for a minute? My heart rate spiked. Had she found something? Had she figured it out? But when I looked at her, I saw something different on her face. Not suspicion. Sadness. I've been thinking about you, she said carefully. About how Jessica announced before you got the chance. And I realized I never actually asked you how you felt about that. I've been so caught up in the excitement about both of you, and I never stopped to ask you if you were okay. I felt my throat tighten. I'm fine. You're not fine, she said gently. And you don't have to be. What Jessica did was thoughtless at best. And I'm sorry for not checking in with you about it. You deserve to have your moment, Sarah. You deserve that after everything. I could have told her then. I could have laid everything out, the fake ultrasounds, the timeline inconsistencies, the stolen photos. I could have finally gotten the validation I'd been chasing. But looking at my mom's face, I realized something. I already had her validation. She knew. Maybe she didn't know the specific details, but she understood that something wasn't right. And she was choosing to be present for me instead. Thank you for saying that, I said. And I'm working through it. But I'm going to be okay. It wasn't a lie. The rest of the shower passed in a blur of small talk and gift opening. I smiled when I was supposed to smile, congratulated Jessica when the moment called for it, and felt the baby move inside me at odd intervals, a tiny reminder that my joy existed separate from this circus. When I was leaving, Brittany caught up with me in the parking lot. You knew, she said. It wasn't a question. Yeah, I admitted. I know. Are you going to tell anyone? I thought about the choice I'd made, about the middle ground that Mark had said didn't exist but I'd found anyway. No, I said. But I think the truth has a way of coming out on its own. And I meant it. Jessica's lies were too elaborate, too many, too detailed. Someone would eventually ask the wrong question or notice the inconsistency. The web she created was intricate, but it was built on nothing. Eventually, it would collapse. It just wouldn't be because of me. I respect that, Brittany said quietly. But I'm done. I can't be friends with someone who lies like that, even if I'm not actively exposing her. I understand, I said. 2 months later, I gave birth to my daughter. My mom was in a delivery room, and she cried when she held her granddaughter. My dad came in carrying flowers, and Mark looked at our baby like she'd hung the moon. In that moment, sweaty and exhausted and happier than I'd ever been, I didn't think about Jessica at all. 6 weeks after that, Jessica admitted to my mom that she'd miscarried. She'd never actually been pregnant. The lie unraveled in the most pathetic way possible. She simply couldn't maintain it anymore, and when pressed about hospital records, she broke down and confessed everything. My parents were devastated. Hurt. Angry. There were family conversations I wasn't part of, decisions made about consequences and boundaries. Jessica went to therapy. Jessica apologized, to me, to my parents, to our extended family. I don't know if she meant it. What I know is that I got to have my pregnancy. I got to have my joy. I got to hold my daughter and feel the weight of those 3 years of wanting finally transform into something real and breathing in here. And I got to do it without becoming consumed by anger. Sometimes the best revenge isn't exposure. Sometimes it's simply refusing to let someone else's brokenness become your own.